Natasha Volkov, Tasha to everyone who couldn't pronounce her patronymic, had learned to make herself invisible. It was a survival skill from childhood in Moscow, refined during her diplomatic career, and perfected in the 3 years since she'd walked away from the State Department. Invisible meant safe. Invisible meant not being asked questions she couldn't answer about why a fluent Russian speaker with a spotless security clearance was now serving tables at an upscale Manhattan restaurant. She was refilling water glasses when the group at table 7 switched from English to Russian. 4 men, all clearly wealthy, all speaking with the casual arrogance of people who assumed staff were either deaf or too stupid to understand. "This place is overpriced trash," one of them said in Russian. His accent was Moscow, educated, old money. "I've had better food in Siberian prison cafeterias." "The waitress is attractive, though," another replied. "Shame she's wasting her looks serving food. I should offer her better employment." On her back, Tasha's hands didn't shake as she continued pouring water. She'd heard worse, much worse. During her diplomatic work, she'd translated conversations between men who discussed women like livestock, who planned atrocities while ordering dessert, who believed their wealth and power made them untouchable. "The blonde or the brunette?" the first man asked. "I prefer blondes, more compliant, easier to control. Take both. You can afford it. Probably make more in one night with you than they make in a month here." Tasha should walk away, should maintain her careful invisibility, should let them continue believing their Russian insulated them from consequences. That's what she'd been doing for 3 years, hiding, surviving, staying safely anonymous. But looking at these men, their expensive suits, their casual cruelty, their absolute certainty that they could say anything without being understood, Tasha felt something snap. She was tired of being invisible, tired of pretending she didn't understand, tired of letting men like these operate without accountability. She set down the water pitcher and addressed the first man in flawless Russian, her Moscow accent as refined as his. "Sir, I apologize that our establishment doesn't meet your standards. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at a Siberian prison cafeteria, since you have such fond memories. I'm sure we could arrange a reservation. As for your comments about my employment options, I'm quite satisfied with my current position. It doesn't require me to tolerate men who mistake wealth for character or arrogance for charm." "Will there be anything else?" The table went silent. All 4 men stared at her with varying expressions of shock, horror, and, in one case, something that looked like impressed amusement. That was the man at the head of the table, Viktor Morozov, according to the reservation. Tech oligarch, energy investments, recently relocated from Moscow to New York, and currently looking at Tasha like she was the most interesting thing he'd encountered in years. "You speak Russian," Viktor said, still in Russian. Not a question. An observation laced with curiosity, fluently, as you've just discovered, along with your colleague's complete lack of discretion. "Gentlemen, in the future you might want to verify that your waitress doesn't understand Russian before discussing her potential as a prostitute. It's awkward for everyone involved." "I apologize," Viktor said immediately, his tone shifting from amused to genuinely contrite. "That was inexcusable. My associates are pigs. I'm Viktor Morozov." "And you are?" "Your waitress, who is about to be fired for speaking to customers this way." "Excuse me." Tasha walked away before Viktor could respond, heading straight to the manager's office. She'd just violated every service protocol, had insulted customers, had revealed she spoke Russian, which meant revealing she understood every conversation that happened in that language. Her careful invisibility was destroyed. "Tasha, what happened?" Marco, the manager, looked concerned rather than angry. "Table 7 is asking for you specifically. Said you were refreshingly honest and want to double their order. I spoke to them in Russian. They were insulting staff in Russian, assuming we couldn't understand. I corrected that assumption." Marco's eyes widened. "You speak Russian? Since when?" "Since always. I'm Russian. Well, Russian-American. I just don't advertise it. Why not?" "That's impressive. We have Russian-speaking customers constantly. You could be really valuable. I don't use my Russian professionally anymore. I left that life behind. Marco, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have spoken to customers that way. If you need to fire me, I understand." "Fire you?" "They tipped $1,000 for water service, and they want you to serve their table personally for the rest of the evening." "Tasha, I don't know what you said, but whatever it was, it worked." "Get back out there!" Returning to table 7 felt like walking into a trap. Viktor was watching her approach with undisguised interest. while his companions looked appropriately chastened. "Gentlemen," Tasha greeted them in English. "I apologize for my earlier outburst. It was unprofessional. How can I assist you this evening?" "By speaking Russian," Victor said. "Your accent is perfect. Native Moscow, educated, upper class. That's not something you acquire by taking language classes. Who are you?" "Your waitress. And you don't get to interrogate me just because you're intrigued. Is there anything I can get you? Food? Drinks? A reminder that servers are people deserving of basic respect." Victor smiled, genuinely smiled, not the practiced expression Tasha had seen earlier. "All three. Bring us your chef's recommendations, whatever you think is best. And while you're doing that, think about whether you'd be willing to tell me how a woman with your linguistic abilities ended up serving tables, instead of working somewhere that values that skill. That's none of your business. Probably not. But I'm curious anyway. Indulge me? Why should I? Because I'm offering you a job. As my translator, I need someone who speaks Russian fluently, understands American culture, and isn't intimidated by wealthy assholes like me. You qualify on all counts. Name your salary. I'll pay it. I'm not interested in working for wealthy assholes. That's actually why I'm a waitress. The pay is worse, but the assholes are temporary. I serve them. They leave. I don't have to see them again. What if the asshole apologizes? What if he admits he was testing you, seeing if anyone at this restaurant understood Russian? What if he's been looking for a translator he can actually trust and you're the first person he's encountered who passes that test? Tasha studied Victor more carefully. He was serious, genuinely offering her a job, and something about his expression suggested this wasn't just about translation. There was something else happening here, something she didn't understand yet. Why do you need a translator? You speak perfect English. Because I do business in multiple countries. Because some negotiations happen in languages where subtle meaning matters. Because I need someone who can translate not just words but context, culture, subtext. Someone who understands what's actually being communicated, not just what's being said. That requires native fluency, native cultural understanding. And based on your response to my associates, you have both. I'm not interested. Thank you for the offer. I'll get your food orders. Tasha served table 7 for the rest of the evening, deflecting Victor's attempts at conversation, maintaining professional distance. But she felt his eyes on her constantly. Felt him watching her interact with other customers. Felt him analyzing her, the way she'd once analyzed diplomatic targets. When the evening ended, Victor left his business card with a note written in Russian. Call me when you decide invisibility isn't serving you anymore. VM Tasha should throw away the card. Should maintain her careful distance from anything related to Russian speakers, diplomacy, or the world she'd left behind. But looking at the note, she felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Temptation. Temptation to use her skills again, to be valued for her abilities instead of hiding them, to stop being invisible. She pocketed the card and went home to her tiny apartment, where she sat staring at it for an hour. Viktor Morozov, tech oligarch, Russian, offering her work that would require her to return to the world she'd fled. She Googled him, found the official biography, born in Moscow, Stanford education, built tech empire, relocated to US 5 years ago. But there were gaps in the story. Unexplained absences, vague references to political complications that had necessitated his relocation, and a pattern of charitable donations to organizations supporting Russian dissidents, journalists, activists. Viktor Morozov wasn't just a tech oligarch. He was someone with a political agenda, someone the Russian government might be interested in, someone who might be dangerous to be associated with. Tasha knew better than to get involved, knew that Russian oligarchs were complicated at best, dangerous at worst, knew that returning to anything Russian meant risking exposure, scrutiny, questions she couldn't answer about why she'd left the State Department. But she also knew that 3 years of hiding hadn't healed her, hadn't resolved anything, hadn't made her feel safer. She just traded one kind of fear for another, swapping the fear of diplomatic work for the fear of being discovered hiding from it. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Tasha Volkov? A man's voice. Russian accent. Not Victor. Who is this? Someone who knows you're not just a waitress. Someone who knows you used to work for the State Department. Someone who's very interested in why you left that position so suddenly. And someone who noticed you speaking Russian with Viktor Morozov tonight. We should meet. Discuss your qualifications. Tasha's blood ran cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't. but you know enough to understand that anonymity is difficult to maintain, especially when you reveal abilities you've been hiding. Call Victor if you want. Work for him if you must. But understand that you've been noticed, and being noticed has consequences. Think carefully about your next moves, Natasha Mikhailovna. The line went dead. He'd used her patronymic, her father's name, information that wasn't public, information that meant someone had done research. Someone knew who she was, what she'd been, and someone was watching. Tasha sat in her dark apartment, holding her phone, realizing her careful invisibility had just shattered completely. Speaking Russian at the restaurant hadn't just attracted Victor's attention. It had attracted someone else's, someone who knew her real name, someone who knew her history, someone who was warning her or threatening her. She looked at Victor's business card. He'd said he was looking for a translator he could trust. But maybe he was also someone who could help her understand who was watching her and why. Maybe working for Victor wasn't just temptation. Maybe it was necessary. Tasha called the number on the card. Victor answered immediately, like he'd been waiting. "You're calling sooner than I expected," Victor said in Russian. "What changed your mind?" "I need information." "About who might be watching me?" "About who knows I spoke Russian tonight." "About whether working for you is going to put me in danger I'm not prepared for." You got a call. Let me guess, someone using your patronymic? Someone suggesting you've been noticed? Someone implying consequences? How did you know?" "Because I get similar calls. Because being a Russian in America who doesn't support Putin makes you interesting to certain people. Because the FSB watches prominent Russians abroad. And because you speaking perfect Moscow Russian to me tonight would definitely have attracted their attention if they were watching. Are they watching you?" "Always. I'm a dissident. I fund opposition groups. I'm exactly the kind of person they want to intimidate or eliminate. If you work for me, you'll be associated with that. You'll be visible again. You'll be at risk. I need you to understand that before you accept. Why didn't you tell me that when you offered me the job?" "Because I wanted to see if you'd figure it out yourself. Wanted to see if you'd do research. Wanted to know if you're as intelligent as your Russian suggests. You are. So now I'll ask properly. Natasha Volkov, will you work for me, knowing the risks, knowing you'll be visible, knowing you'll be associated with someone the Russian government considers an enemy?" Tasha thought about 3 years of hiding. About invisibility that hadn't protected her. About the person who'd called with veiled threats. About being noticed whether she wanted to be or not. "Yes, I'll work for you. But Victor, if you're lying to me, if you're actually FSB or working for Putin, I'll destroy you. I know how. I have the skills. Don't test me. I'm not FSB. I'm exactly what I appear to be, a Russian who left because staying meant compromising everything I believe. Welcome to the team, Tasha. Come to my office tomorrow. We have a lot to discuss, including who's watching us and why." Victor's office was in a midtown skyscraper, 40th floor, with security that rivaled what Tasha had seen at the State Department. Biometric scanners, armed guards, metal detectors. Not typical for a tech company, even a successful one. "You run your business like a fortress," Tasha observed as Victor's assistant led her through the final security checkpoint. "Because it needs to be one. I've had 3 attempts on my life in the past 2 years. Russian intelligence doesn't appreciate dissidents with resources. Security is necessary, not paranoia." Victor's office was sparse, desk, computer, windows overlooking Manhattan. No personal items, no photographs, nothing that suggested this was where he spent significant time. It looked like a space designed to be abandoned quickly if necessary. "You're noticing the lack of personal effects," Victor said. "That's deliberate. This office gets swept for bugs weekly. I assume everything here is monitored. I keep nothing here I'm not willing to have intercepted. Actual work happens elsewhere. Where? That depends on the work. And on whether I trust you. Tasha, before we discuss employment, I need to know why you left the State Department. Why a diplomat with your clearance and abilities is hiding as a waitress. What happened?" Tasha had practiced this answer for 3 years. Had refined the lie until it sounded true. But looking at Victor, at someone who clearly understood surveillance, threats, the cost of opposing powerful forces, she found herself telling the truth instead. "I was a translator for sensitive negotiations. Russian, Arabic, Mandarin. I worked on deals involving countries with complicated political situations. And during one negotiation, I translated something I wasn't supposed to hear. Something classified. Something that revealed the U.S. was supporting a group we publicly opposed. I reported it. Filed official complaint. and I was quietly removed. Told my services were no longer required. Told if I discussed what I'd heard, I'd be prosecuted under Espionage Act. So I left. Became invisible. Spent 3 years hiding from anyone who might ask questions about why I'd left. What did you hear? Specifically, I can't tell you. That's still classified. That's still something I could be prosecuted for revealing. Even to someone who already knows the general situation. Tasha, I fund dissident groups globally. I hear things through those networks. If you tell me which negotiation, which group, I can probably guess what you heard. And knowing means I can help protect you if that information becomes relevant. Tasha weighed the risk. Victor was either genuine or the most sophisticated FSB operation she'd encountered. But the person who'd called with threats already knew her history. Staying silent wasn't protection anymore. Syria, 2018. We were publicly opposing Assad, privately funding certain opposition groups. But in the negotiation I translated, it became clear we were also coordinating with Russian intelligence on which groups to support. We weren't opposing Assad. We were managing the opposition, keeping it contained, and we were doing it with Russian cooperation at the highest levels. I reported it. I was removed. I was told to forget what I'd heard. Victor was quiet for a long moment. That's significant. That's not just policy disagreement. That's evidence of coordination between U.S. and Russian intelligence on matters both countries publicly deny. You were removed because you'd seen proof of something officially non-existent. Tasha, that makes you dangerous. To both American and Russian interests. Do you understand that? I've understood it for 3 years. That's why I've been hiding. But Victor, someone called me last night. Someone who knows who I am. Someone who knows my history. My hiding didn't work. So I'm here, working for you. Hoping you're actually who you claim to be and not FSB sent to eliminate an inconvenient witness. I'm not FSB. I'm the opposite. I'm someone the FSB wants dead because I fund their opposition. But Tasha, if you work for me, you'll be even more visible. Even more valuable as a target. Are you prepared for that? I'm prepared to stop hiding. Whether that's smart or suicidal, I'll find out. Over the next month, Tasha learned that Victor's tech business was largely a front. He made money from legitimate technology ventures, but his real work was coordinating support for Russian dissidents, journalists, activists, funneling money, resources, asylum assistance, operating a network that helped people escape Putin's regime. You're running an underground railroad, Tasha said during one of their planning sessions. They were in a secure apartment Victor maintained for sensitive meetings, different location weekly, swept for surveillance constantly. This isn't translation work. This is intelligence operations. It's humanitarian work. I help people who need help. Yes, that requires intelligence tradecraft. Yes, that puts me at odds with Russian government. But Tasha, these are people who will die if they stay in Russia. Journalists who've exposed corruption, activists who've organized protests, LGBT people who face persecution. I have resources. I use them to save people. Is that wrong? It's not wrong. It's dangerous. Victor, if Russian intelligence realizes the scope of what you're doing, they won't just threaten you. They'll eliminate you, and everyone associated with you, including me. Which is why I need someone with your skills. Someone who understands intelligence operations. Someone who can identify threats. Someone who speaks Russian fluently enough to detect agents posing as refugees. Tasha, you're not just a translator. You're security. You're someone who can help me avoid being infiltrated. That's what I really hired you for. You should have told me that up front. Would you have accepted? If I'd said, come help me run covert operations against Russian intelligence, would you have said yes? No, I would have run, which is probably why you hired me as a translator instead. Partially. But also because you are an excellent translator. I do need that. I just also need your other skills. Your ability to read people, to identify inconsistencies, to recognize when someone's story doesn't match their behavior. You were trained in that at State Department. I need that training. Over the following months, Tasha found herself doing exactly what Victor had described, vetting refugees, identifying potential FSB plants, coordinating with other dissident networks. It was intelligence work without the official sanction. It was everything she'd left behind at State Department. Except now, she was working against Russian interests instead of sometimes coordinating with them. You found 3 FSB agents trying to infiltrate, Victor observed during a security review. 3 people who would have compromised our entire network. How are you identifying them? Inconsistencies. Their Russian is too perfect. Real refugees have regional accents, class markers, speaking patterns that reveal origin. FSB trains agents in standard Moscow Russian. They sound like translators, not natives. Also, their stories are too clean. Real refugees have messy histories, gaps, contradictions, things that don't quite make sense because real life doesn't make sense. FSB plants have logical stories, coherent narratives. They're too prepared for questioning. You're better at this than my security team. I'm a native Russian speaker who worked in diplomatic intelligence. I know both how Russians actually sound and how intelligence agencies train agents. That's a rare combination. It's invaluable. Tasha, I want to increase your responsibilities. Put you in charge of all vetting. Make you head of security for the network. Can you handle that? I can handle it if you're honest with me about the risks. About what I'm actually protecting against. About who's watching us and what they're capable of. Victor pulled up files on his encrypted laptop. These are the known FSB operations against dissidents abroad. Poisonings, accidents, disappearances. They're sophisticated. They're patient. They're willing to spend years building cover before moving. And Tasha, they're watching me. I've had 2 close calls. One poisoning attempt I survived because I randomly chose a different restaurant. One staged accident I avoided because I changed my route at the last minute. Pure luck. I'm still alive by accident, not by skill. Then you need better security than luck. You need systematic protocols, randomized patterns, verified supply chains. Everything I learned about protecting diplomatic personnel from assassination. Can you implement that? Build those systems? I can. But Victor, it'll restrict your life significantly. No predictable patterns, no unvetted contacts, no spontaneous decisions. Everything calculated, everything planned. Can you live that way? I already do, mostly. I've learned paranoia keeps you alive. Formalizing it just makes it systematic. Building security protocols brought Tasha and Victor closer. Hours spent analyzing threats, planning responses, building networks of trust. And somewhere in that work, professional respect became personal connection. Became something that felt dangerous in different ways than FSB surveillance. We're blurring lines, Tasha said one evening. They were in Victor's secure apartment, reviewing intelligence reports, sitting closer than strictly necessary. Professional and personal. That's complicated. Everything about this work is complicated. Adding personal feelings doesn't make it more complicated. Just different. Victor looked at her directly. I'm attracted to you. Have been since you responded to my associates in perfect Russian. I'm attracted to your competence, your courage, your refusal to be intimidated. But I haven't acted on it because you work for me. Because that creates power dynamics. Because I don't want you to feel pressured. I don't feel pressured. I feel the same attraction. But Victor, we're both targets. Both people FSB wants to neutralize. Getting involved personally makes us vulnerable. Makes each other hostages. That's dangerous. More dangerous than working together daily. More dangerous than coordinating life or death operations. Tasha, we're already vulnerable to each other. Already dependent. Already hostages in a sense. Being honest about feelings doesn't change that. Just acknowledges it. You're very rational about this. I'm Russian. We're practical about romance. We accept that love and danger coexist. That safety and passion are incompatible. That choosing someone means accepting risk. I'm choosing you, if you'll accept that choice. Tasha thought about 3 years of hiding. About invisibility that hadn't protected her. About being noticed whether she wanted to be or not. About Victor, who'd offered her work that mattered, who'd trusted her with sensitive operations, who was honest about dangers instead of pretending safety existed. I accept. But Victor, we do this carefully. We don't become predictable. We don't create patterns FSB can exploit. We protect each other by being unpredictable. Can you do that? I've been doing it for 5 years. Adding you just means 2 people being unpredictable instead of 1. I can work with that. They became involved carefully, maintaining operational security even in their relationship. Different meeting places, randomized schedules, nothing that created patterns, nothing that made them easier targets. This is the least romantic relationship I've ever had, Tasha observed after they'd been together 2 months. We plan our dates like military operations. We never go to the same place twice. We communicate through encrypted channels. Normal couples don't live this way. Normal couples aren't targeted by Russian intelligence. We're not normal. We're 2 dissidents trying to survive while doing work that matters. Romance happens in the gaps between security protocols. That's our reality. I don't hate it. It's just very different from what I expected relationships to be. What did you expect? Stability, predictability, knowing where someone is. Being able to call them without encryption, normal things. Those things are illusions anyway. False security, at least our way is honest. We acknowledge danger exists. We prepare for it. We don't pretend safety is possible if we just follow social conventions. That's more real than most relationships. 3 months into their relationship, the threats escalated. Victor's car was tampered with, brakes compromised in ways that looked accidental. His apartment had a gas leak that would have been fatal if their randomized schedules hadn't kept him elsewhere that night. Someone was targeting him actively, patiently, persistently. They're getting closer, Victor said during an emergency security review. The attempts are more sophisticated, more tailored to my patterns. Someone is watching very carefully, learning, adapting. We need to change everything. Go completely dark. Assume all communications are compromised. Assume all patterns are known. Start over with security protocols. Or we go on offense, Tasha suggested. Stop just defending. Start identifying who's running these operations. Expose them. Make it too costly to continue targeting you. That's extremely dangerous. That means confronting FSB directly, drawing their attention deliberately. Tasha, that could get us both killed. We're already being targeted, already at risk. At least if we're proactive, we control the engagement. We choose when and how. That's better than waiting for them to succeed eventually. You sound like you've done this before. I've studied it. At State Department, we analyzed assassination attempts, learned patterns, understood methodology. I know how FSB operates, know their limitations, know where they're vulnerable. Victor, we can do this. We can identify their operation and disrupt it. If we're smart, if we're careful, and if we're lucky. Luck helps, but skill matters more. Let's use ours. Going on offense against FSB required resources Tasha and Victor didn't have alone. They needed intelligence, surveillance capabilities, and expertise beyond what their small operation could provide. Which meant reaching out to people Tasha had avoided for 3 years, her former colleagues at the State Department. This is a terrible idea, Tasha said, as they prepared to meet her former supervisor. I left under suspicious circumstances. I filed complaints that made powerful people uncomfortable. They're not going to welcome me back. They don't need to welcome you. They just need to share intelligence about FSB operations in New York, about who's running surveillance on Russian dissidents, about what assets FSB has deployed. That's information State Department has. Information they might share if properly motivated. What motivation? I have nothing to offer them. You have me. A Russian oligarch funding dissident networks. Someone FSB wants dead. Someone whose assassination would be geopolitically significant. State Department cares about preventing assassinations on U.S. soil. That's motivation. The meeting was held at a coffee shop in D.C., deliberately public, deliberately casual. Tasha's former supervisor, Margaret Chen, arrived exactly on time, looking older and more tired than Tasha remembered. Tasha Volkov. I wondered if I'd ever see you again. You disappeared quite thoroughly. Margaret's tone was neutral, professional. Your email said this was urgent. About FSB operations. What do you know? I'm working for Viktor Morozov, Russian tech oligarch, dissident. He's being targeted. Multiple assassination attempts over 6 months. Sophisticated operations. Patient surveillance. Classic FSB methodology. We need to know who's running the operation. Who's been deployed? What assets FSB has in New York that we should be aware of? Why would I share that information? You left state. You filed complaints that complicated important negotiations. You're no longer someone I trust with classified intelligence. Because Victor is going to be assassinated on U.S. soil if we don't stop it. Because that assassination will be politically embarrassing. Because preventing it is in State Department's interest. Margaret, I'm not asking for favors. I'm offering you the chance to prevent an international incident. Margaret studied her for a long moment. Viktor Morozov is known to us. He funds opposition groups, helps dissidents escape. FSB has been tracking him for years. We've provided informal security warnings, kept him alive through intelligence sharing. If you're working for him, you're already in our files, already being monitored to ensure you're not a security risk. You've been watching me? For 3 years. Since you left. Yes. We needed to ensure you weren't compromised. That your complaints about Syria weren't cover for something else. You've been clean, living quietly, working as waitress, until you started working for Morozov. That raised flags, questions about whether you were recruited, whether this is something we need to be concerned about. I wasn't recruited. I chose to work for him. I chose to stop hiding. That's different, is it? Tasha, FSB recruitment is sophisticated. They don't always tell people they're being recruited. They create situations, apply pressure, make certain choices seem necessary. Are you certain you chose this, or were you manipulated into choosing it? Tasha felt cold realization. The phone call after she spoke Russian, the veiled threats, the suggestion she'd been noticed. What if that hadn't been FSB warning her? What if it had been FSB pushing her toward Victor? Creating fear that would drive her to seek protection from the exact person they wanted to monitor? You think I'm compromised? That FSB used me to get close to Victor. I think it's possible. The timing is suspicious. You reveal Russian abilities. You receive threatening call. You immediately go to work for the person FSB most wants to infiltrate. That's a textbook recruitment pattern, whether you're aware of it or not. I'm not FSB. I'm not working for them. Margaret, I know what recruitment looks like. I'd recognize it. Would you? You're emotionally involved with Morozov. You're invested in his work. You're exactly the kind of asset FSB loves, ideologically aligned with target, emotionally committed, blind to how you're being used. Tasha, I'm not accusing you of conscious betrayal. I'm suggesting you've been manipulated without realizing it. Then help me figure out if that's true. Share intelligence. Let me see FSB operations. Let me identify if I've been compromised. Because if I have been, Victor is in danger from me. And I need to know. Margaret considered this. I'll share limited intelligence. Enough for you to assess whether you've been manipulated. But Tasha, if you have been compromised, you need to remove yourself from Morozov immediately. Whether you're aware of being FSB asset or not, proximity to him puts him at risk. Can you do that? Can you walk away if evidence suggests you're the threat? Yes, I can. Show me what you have. The intelligence Margaret shared was devastating. FSB had indeed been running an operation to infiltrate Victor's network. They'd identified Tasha 3 years ago, immediately after she left State Department. They'd monitored her, waiting for opportunity. And when she spoke Russian at the restaurant, they'd activated, making the threatening call, creating fear, pushing her toward Victor. You were always the target, Margaret explained. FSB knew about your linguistic abilities, knew about your diplomatic background, knew you'd be valuable to Morozov if they could position you correctly. The threatening call wasn't warning. It was manipulation. They wanted you scared, wanted you to seek protection from Morozov. Once you were close to him, they planned to activate you. Activate me how? I'm not their agent. I've never been contacted except that one call. Activation doesn't always mean direct contact. Sometimes it means creating situations where you inadvertently compromise security, where your proximity to target is enough, where you're the vulnerability without even knowing it. Tasha, they've been tracking your communications with Morozov, using you to map his network. They haven't asked you to do anything because you've been doing exactly what they wanted, giving them access. Tasha felt sick. Every communication with Victor, every meeting, every operation, all potentially compromised through her. She'd thought she was helping him, building security, protecting his network. Instead, she'd been the vulnerability, the weakness FSB was exploiting. I need to tell Victor, need to remove myself from his operations. If I'm the threat, I can't stay close to him. Agreed. But Tasha, there's another option. If you're aware you're being used, you can feed false information. Lead FSB away from actual operations. Use their surveillance against them. Become double agent, making them think they have access while actually protecting Morozov. Can you do that? Can you live that way? I did it for State Department. I can do it again. But Margaret, I need support. Need intelligence about what FSB knows. Need guidance about what information to feed them. I can't do this alone. You won't be alone. I'll provide support, unofficially, off the books. Because officially, State Department can't run operations against Russian intelligence on U.S. soil. But unofficially, I can help you protect Morozov while neutralizing the threat you inadvertently created. Are you willing to do this? It's dangerous. It's complicated. It means lying to Morozov about your role. Can you handle that? Tasha thought about Victor. About the man who'd offered her work that mattered. Who'd been honest about dangers. Who'd trusted her with his network. Who she'd inadvertently compromised by being exactly who she was, a Russian speaker with intelligence background and FSB interest. I can handle it. But I need to tell Victor the truth first. Need him to know I was used. Need him to decide if he still wants me involved. I won't lie to him about this. That's not negotiable. Telling him puts the operation at risk. If he knows you're potentially compromised, he'll change behavior. FSB will notice, will realize you're aware of surveillance. I don't care. Victor deserves honesty, deserves to make informed choice about whether to trust me. I won't manipulate him the way FSB manipulated me. Tell him or I walk away from everything. Margaret sighed. Fine, tell him, but do it securely. Assume all normal communications are monitored. Use the protocols I'll provide. And Tasha, if Morozov decides he can't trust you, I need you to walk away. To not compromise our broader operations against FSB. Can you do that? Yes. If Victor doesn't want me involved, I'll walk away. But I'll help you take down the FSB operation targeting him, whether he wants my help or not, because I created this mess. I'm going to clean it up. Telling Victor was the hardest conversation Tasha had ever had. They met in a secure location Margaret had provided, a safe house State Department maintained for sensitive meetings, swept for surveillance. Completely isolated from FSB monitoring, I was manipulated, Tasha explained. FSB identified me 3 years ago, waited for opportunity. When I spoke Russian at the restaurant, they activated. That threatening call wasn't FSB warning me. It was FSB pushing me toward you, making me seek protection, using my fear to position me close to you. I've been a vulnerability, an access point. Everything I've done for your network has potentially been compromised through me. Victor was quiet for a long time, processing. You're saying you're FSB asset, inadvertently, without knowing it. Yes. I'm saying I've been used. That my presence in your operation has given FSB access they wouldn't have otherwise. That I'm the threat I was supposed to be protecting you from, and now that you're aware. What's your plan? State Department is offering support. They'll help me become double agent. Feed false information to FSB, protect your actual operations while making FSB think they have access. But Victor, that only works if you trust me, if you're willing to let me continue being involved. If you can accept that I was compromised and work with that instead of just removing me, you're asking if I trust you, after telling me you've been FSB's access point for months. That's a complicated question. It is. And if you answer no, I understand. I'll walk away. I'll still help State Department neutralize FSB operations against you, but I'll do it from distance. Won't be involved in your network. Won't be vulnerability anymore. Victor, what do you want? Victor stood, walked to the window, stared at the city for several minutes before responding. I want you involved. Not despite the FSB connection. Because of it. Tasha, you've just given us enormous advantage. FSB thinks they have access through you. If we know that, we can use it. Feed them false information. Lead them away from real operations. Use their own asset against them. That's intelligence gold. I'd be stupid to waste it by removing you. You're not angry? Not betrayed. You were manipulated by sophisticated intelligence agency using your own fears against you. That's not betrayal. That's you being targeted by people who are very good at targeting. I'm not angry at you. I'm angry at FSB, and I'm grateful you told me. Grateful you're giving me choice instead of just disappearing to protect me. That's trust. That's partnership. That's what I want from you. So I stay. We do this together. We turn FSB's operation against them. We do it together. You become the double agent. I adjust operations to accommodate. We work with State Department to neutralize threats. And Tasha, we do it carefully. Because if FSB realizes you're aware, they'll eliminate both of us. This has to be perfect. Has to be completely convincing. Can you do that? Can you lie that well? I spent years in diplomatic intelligence. I know how to lie. I just didn't want to lie to you. But lying to FSB? I can do that enthusiastically. Then let's begin. Let's turn their operation against them. Let's protect my network while making them think they're infiltrating it. And Tasha, let's show FSB what happens when they underestimate their targets. They thought they were recruiting an asset. They accidentally created their own worst enemy. You. That's their mistake. Let's make sure they regret it. Operating as a double agent required Tasha to live 2 lives simultaneously. To FSB surveillance, she was the unwitting asset, close to Victor, providing access to his network, inadvertently compromising security. To Victor and State Department, she was the controlled vulnerability, feeding false information, protecting real operations, slowly dismantling FSB's intelligence gathering. You're doing well, Margaret told her during one of their weekly secure debriefings. FSB believes they have complete access through you. They're confident, overconfident. That's when they make mistakes. What mistakes have they made so far? They've revealed their surveillance network. We've identified 3 FSB officers working under diplomatic cover, 2 illegals, deep cover agents with false identities, and a network of assets they're using for monitoring. Normally we wouldn't know about these people. But because they're confident in their access through you, they're being sloppy, using resources they'd normally protect. That's valuable intelligence. Can we use it? Expose them? Force them out? Not yet. If we act now, they'll know we identified them through you. We'll realize you're not the asset they think you are. We need to wait. Build a complete picture. Then take down the entire network at once. Make it look like general counterintelligence operation, not something traced to you specifically. The double agent work was mentally exhausting. Every conversation with Victor potentially monitored. Every meeting potentially surveilled. Every communication carefully crafted to maintain the illusion of FSB access while actually protecting operations. Tasha had to remember what FSB knew, what they didn't know, what they thought they knew. Had to maintain multiple versions of reality simultaneously. You're losing weight, Victor observed one evening. They were in his secure apartment, one of the few places they could be honest without performance. You're not sleeping. This work is destroying you. Tasha, maybe we should stop. Maybe protecting my network isn't worth what this is costing you. It's not just your network. It's hundreds of dissidents, journalists, activists, people who will die if FSB successfully infiltrates and exposes them. That's worth my exhaustion, worth my stress. I've spent 3 years hiding, doing nothing meaningful. This matters. I'm not stopping, even if it breaks you. Tasha, I've watched people burn out from intelligence work. You're showing the signs. Paranoia, insomnia, constant hypervigilance. That's not sustainable. It's temporary. Once we dismantle FSB's operation, I can stop, can rest, can go back to being just your translator instead of double agent. But right now this is necessary, so I'm doing it. Let me help. Tell me what you need. How can I make this more sustainable? You can trust me. Even when I'm lying to FSB, even when I'm feeding them false information that sounds real, even when I'm doing things that look like betrayal but are actually protection. Victor, that's what I need from you. Trust that I'm working for your interests, even when it doesn't look like it. I trust you completely. But Tasha, trust doesn't mean ignoring when someone you care about is suffering. Let me help you manage this. Let me share the burden instead of watching you carry it alone. 4 months into the double agent operation, FSB made their move. They contacted Tasha directly, not through surveillance, but through explicit recruitment. A man approached her on the street speaking Russian, offering protection if she'd provide information about Victor's operations. We know you're close to Morozov, the FSB officer said. His name was Alexei Volkov, deliberately using her surname, suggesting connection, kinship. We know you understand the difficulties of being Russian in America. The suspicion, the prejudice. We can help you, protect you, ensure your safety. All we need is cooperation. Information about Morozov's network. Names of dissidents he's helping, details of operations. Simple information in exchange for protection. And if I refuse? Tasha asked, playing the scared asset, then you're at risk. From American authorities who already suspect you. From Morozov, who will discover you've been compromised. From situations beyond your control. Cooperation is survival, Natasha Mikhailovna. For people like us, there's no neutral position. You're either with us or against us. Which will you choose? Tasha pretended to consider. Pretended to be frightened, uncertain, pressured. I need time. Need to think about this. Can I have time? 1 week. Then we need answer. And Natasha, understand, refusal has consequences. For you, for family members still in Russia, for everyone you care about. Think carefully. The threat to family was new information. Tasha's parents had defected when she was 15, but extended family remained in Russia. Cousins, aunts, uncles, people FSB could target if they wanted leverage. That was the escalation Margaret had predicted. When indirect surveillance wasn't enough, FSB would apply direct pressure. They've gone active recruitment, Tasha told Margaret during emergency debrief. Direct contact, explicit threats, including threats to family in Russia. That's significant escalation. It means they're confident in their leverage. Confident I'll cooperate, or desperate. Direct recruitment is risky. It exposes their officer, creates evidence. They're only doing it if they believe surveillance isn't sufficient. That they need active control. Why now? What changed? Victor is planning something. Major operation. Extracting a high-profile journalist from Moscow. FSB must have detected planning. Must be trying to get ahead of it by recruiting me directly. If they think I have information about extraction, they'll push hard for cooperation. Do you have information about extraction? Yes, Victor told me. Which means FSB thinks I'm still their inadvertent asset. Thinks I don't know they're monitoring. The direct recruitment is them moving from passive surveillance to active control. They want to task me. Give me specific intelligence requirements. Turn me into actual agent instead of accidental vulnerability, which gives us opportunity. If you agree to cooperation, you can feed them false information about the extraction. Lead them away from real operation. Protect the journalist while making FSB think they're stopping the operation. Can you do that? Can you convince FSB you're cooperating while actually sabotaging them? I can, but Margaret, my family. The threats to family in Russia, those are real. FSB will follow through if they realize I'm deceiving them. I need protection for my relatives. Need them extracted. Need them safe before I proceed with this. We can arrange that. It'll take time. We'll have to coordinate with allies. Create cover stories. But yes, we can protect your family. Give me 2 weeks. Then you can safely agree to FSB cooperation, knowing your relatives are secure. The 2 weeks were agonizing. Tasha had to tell Alexei she needed time without refusing outright. Had to maintain the illusion of consideration while State Department extracted her relatives from Russia. Had to pretend she didn't know her family was being moved. That the vacation her cousin suddenly took to Turkey was spontaneous, not carefully orchestrated exfiltration. Your family is safe, Margaret finally confirmed. All relatives extracted. New identities established. They're in protective custody. They don't know why. They think there were visa opportunities. They have no idea they were FSB leverage. You're clear to proceed with false cooperation. FSB can't threaten family anymore. With her family safe, Tasha agreed to FSB recruitment. She met with Alexei, pretended to be frightened and cornered, agreed to provide information in exchange for protection. Became officially an FSB asset working against Viktor Morozov. Smart decision, Alexei said when she agreed. Cooperation is survival. Now we need information. Morozov is planning extraction of journalists from Moscow. We know he's planning. We need details. Who is the journalist? What's the extraction method? When is operation scheduled? Give us this, and you're protected. You're safe. You're one of us. Tasha provided false information. Named a different journalist, someone FSB already knew about, making the intelligence seem credible. Described a different extraction method. Gave a false timeline. Everything designed to lead FSB away from Viktor's real operation while making them believe they had complete intelligence. Excellent work, Alexei said, reviewing her information. This is exactly what we needed. You've proven your value, your loyalty. Continue this cooperation and you'll be protected, rewarded. Your asset now, one of ours. Be proud of that. Tasha felt disgust but maintained her performance. Played the frightened woman who'd chosen survival over principle. Let Alexei believe he'd successfully recruited her. Let FSB think they'd turned Viktor's most trusted ally into their agent. While FSB prepared to intercept the fake extraction, Viktor executed the real operation. Different journalist, different method, different timeline. Everything FSB didn't know about because Tasha had fed them false intelligence. The extraction succeeded perfectly. The journalist arrived safely in New York, and FSB had no idea they'd been deceived. They fell for it completely, Margaret confirmed. FSB deployed significant resources to intercept your false extraction. Found nothing. They're confused, wondering if their intelligence was wrong. But they still think you're their asset. Still think you're providing good information that just happened to be outdated. You've bought credibility. That's valuable. Next time you feed them false information, they'll believe it more readily. How many more times? Tasha asked. How long do I maintain this? I'm lying to FSB, maintaining cover with Viktor, reporting to you, living 3 different versions of reality. How long is sustainable? Until we've mapped their entire network. Until we know every asset, every officer, every operation. Then we take them down, all at once, comprehensively. But Tasha, that requires patience, requires you to maintain this performance for months more, possibly a year. Can you do that? I don't have a choice. If I stop now, FSB will realize I was deceiving them. Will realize I'm actually working against them. Will retaliate against everyone I've protected. So yes, I'll continue. However long it takes. But Margaret, eventually, this has to end. Eventually, I need to stop being triple agent and just be myself again. Remember that. Remember I'm human, not just intelligence asset. I remember. And Tasha, when this is over, State Department will ensure your safety, will give you new identity if necessary, will protect you from FSB retaliation. You're not expendable. You're valuable. We'll take care of you. I hope that's true, because if it's not, I'm putting myself through psychological torture for nothing, and that would be really disappointing. 6 months into the operation, Tasha had provided FSB with enough false intelligence that their entire understanding of Victor's network was compromised. They thought they knew which dissidents he was helping. They were wrong. Thought they knew his extraction methods. They were wrong. Thought they had comprehensive picture of his operations. They had carefully constructed fiction. We're ready to move, Margaret told her during final debrief before takedown. We have complete map of FSB's network. Every asset, every officer, every operation. State Department is coordinating with FBI to arrest diplomats under espionage charges, roll up illegals' network, expose their assets. It happens tomorrow. And Tasha, when it happens, you need to disappear. Need to go completely dark, because FSB will realize you deceived them. Will want retaliation. You're not safe until they're completely dismantled. What about Victor? Is he safe? He's protected. We're providing security. But FSB will know he wasn't actually compromised. Will know you were protecting him. That makes you the target. You need to disappear until FSB threat is neutralized. Can you do that? Can you walk away from Victor, from the network you built, from everything until it's safe? If it keeps Victor safe, yes, I can disappear. But Margaret, make sure he knows I'm alive. Make sure he knows I didn't abandon him. Make sure he understands I'm protecting him by leaving. That's all I need. His understanding. I'll make sure he knows. Now go. Disappear. We'll contact you when it's safe. Tasha disappeared into a State Department safe house in rural Virginia. Isolated farmhouse, no neighbors, completely off-grid. She had no phone, no internet, no contact with anyone except Margaret's twice-weekly secure calls updating her on the takedown operation. We arrested 12 FSB officers, Margaret reported during the first call. Expelled them under diplomatic immunity. Rolled up the illegals network. 6 deep cover agents, all arrested, facing espionage charges. Exposed 43 assets, Americans who'd been recruited. Some are cooperating, some are being prosecuted. It's the most comprehensive disruption of Russian intelligence operations in decades. You made this possible. What about Victor? Is he safe? He's secure. FBI is providing protection. FSB can't touch him now. Their network is destroyed. Their surveillance capabilities compromised. He's safer than he's been in years. And Tasha, he's asking about you. Wants to know where you are. Wants to see you. But we can't allow contact yet. FSB will be looking for retaliation opportunities. You need to stay hidden until we're certain the threat is neutralized. How long? Weeks. Maybe months. Until we've confirmed all FSB assets have been identified. Until Russian intelligence accepts the operation failed and moves on. Tasha, I know this is hard, but staying hidden keeps you alive, keeps Victor alive. That's what matters. The isolation was brutal. After months of hypervigilance, of living multiple identities simultaneously, of constant performance, the sudden silence felt disorienting. Tasha had nothing to do except wait. Nothing to focus on except wondering if Victor understood why she'd disappeared. If he believed she'd abandoned him, or if Margaret had explained she was protecting him by leaving. 3 weeks into isolation, Margaret's call brought disturbing news. FSB is hunting for you. They've realized you were the double agent. They know you fed them false intelligence. They're looking for revenge. Tasha, they've put out feelers in the intelligence community, offering money for information about your location. Significant money. You're now a high-value target. How high value? $2 million. That's how much they're offering for information leading to you. That's substantial bounty. That's, we're extremely motivated to find and eliminate you money. You need to stay hidden. Indefinitely. Until FSB either gives up or is neutralized by other means. Indefinitely could be years. Margaret, I can't live in isolation for years. That's not sustainable. There has to be another option. There is. New identity. Witness protection program. Complete reinvention. New name, new location, new life. You'd be safe, but you'd also be cut off from everyone you know, including Victor. No contact, no communication, Complete separation. Is that acceptable? No. It's not. I didn't spend months deceiving FSB just to lose everything anyway. There has to be a way to neutralize the threat without me disappearing forever. There might be. If we can convince FSB that you're not worth the resources they're spending, that you're dead, captured, or otherwise neutralized, then they stop looking. But Tasha, that requires staging something, creating evidence of your death or capture. Are you willing to do that? To let everyone believe you're gone? Including Victor? Including Victor. Yes. If he believes you're dead, he grieves and moves on. But he stays safe. FSB has no reason to target him if they think their revenge is complete. If you're dead, everyone moves forward, including you, under new identity. That's the option. Tasha thought about Victor. About the man who'd trusted her despite FSB compromise, who'd worked with her to turn surveillance into advantage, who'd supported her through the psychological torture of being triple agent. The man she loved, who she'd have to let believe she was dead. I need to talk to him first, one conversation, before I die. I need him to understand why I'm doing this. Need him to know I'm choosing this to protect him. I can't let him think I died believing he didn't know. Margaret, one conversation. That's all I'm asking. Then I'll do whatever you need. I'll die convincingly. I'll disappear into witness protection. I'll give up everything. Just let me talk to him first. That's a security risk. If FSB is monitoring him, they've lost their surveillance network. You said so yourself. They can't monitor him anymore. One secure conversation. That's not unreasonable. Margaret, I did everything you asked. Risked everything. Maintained impossible cover for months. I'm asking for one conversation with the man I love before I give up my entire life. That's not too much to ask. Margaret was silent for a long time. Fine, one conversation, completely secure. Victor comes here. To the safe house. No communication beforehand. No one knows except me. He arrives, you talk, he leaves. Then we stage your death. Deal? Deal. When can he come? Tomorrow. I'll arrange transport. But Tasha, you have 1 hour. That's all. Use it wisely. Victor arrived the next afternoon, looking exhausted and worried. The moment he saw Tasha, he pulled her into an embrace. That felt desperate, like he'd thought he might never see her again. You disappeared, Victor said. Margaret said you were safe but gave no details. No communication, no contact. I've been terrified something happened to you. That FSB found you. That you were... He couldn't finish the sentence. I'm alive. I'm safe. But Victor, I can't stay that way and remain in your life. FSB is hunting me. $2 million bounty. They want revenge. The only way to neutralize that threat is to make them think I'm dead, which means I have to actually disappear. New identity. New life. No contact with anyone from my past. Including you. No. There has to be another way. We can fight this together. We've fought everything else together. Why is this different? Because this time the threat is specifically about me. About FSB wanting revenge on the asset who deceived them. You're safe now. Their network is destroyed, but I'm still a target. And as long as I'm alive and known to be alive, they'll keep looking. The only way to stop them is to give them what they want. My death. Staged, obviously, but convincing enough that they stop searching. So you're asking me to let you go. To accept your death. To grieve you while knowing you're actually alive somewhere with new identity. To move on with my life while you're living completely different life. Tasha, that's not acceptable. I won't do it. You have to. Because the alternative is me actually dying. FSB will find me eventually if I stay visible. Will succeed in their revenge. But if I die now, under controlled circumstances, I actually survive. I live. Under different name, yes. In different place, yes. But alive, that's better than the alternative. How is it better? You're still gone, still lost to me, still dead as far as my experience is concerned. What difference does it make if you're actually alive if I never see you again? That makes a difference because you'll know. Because you won't actually grieve. Because you'll know I'm somewhere living, safe, continuing to exist even if we're not in contact. Victor, I've spent months as triple agent living multiple identities simultaneously. I can do this. I can be someone else. But I need you to let me go. Need you to accept my death and move forward. Can you do that?
No, I can't.
Tasha, I love you. I'm not going to just accept your disappearance because it's strategically necessary. That's asking too much. It's asking you to prioritize my survival over your feelings. That's not too much. That's love. Real love means wanting someone to be alive even if you can't be with them. Do you love me enough to want me alive? Or do you love me only as long as I'm accessible to you? Victor was silent for a long time, clearly struggling. That's unfair. You're making this about whether I truly love you when really it's about whether I can accept losing you. Those are different questions. Are they? Victor, I need to know you'll be okay. Need to know you'll continue the work. Continue protecting dissidents. Continue fighting FSB. I can't disappear into witness protection wondering if you've collapsed because of my death. I need you to be strong, to move forward, to live. Can you do that? Can you be okay without me? I don't want to be okay without you. I want to be okay with you. But Tasha, if staying means you die, then yes, I'll accept your disappearance. I'll grieve your death publicly while knowing privately you're alive. I'll continue the work. I'll move forward. But you need to understand, I'm not choosing this. I'm accepting it because you've made it the only option. That's different from wanting it. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I brought FSB surveillance into your life. Sorry I was the vulnerability they exploited. Sorry this is how it has to end. But Victor, these months with you, working together, building something meaningful, being understood by someone who actually values my abilities, that was everything. That was worth the cost. I don't regret any of it. Even though it ended with you disappearing, with us being separated permanently, you don't regret that. I regret the separation, but not the relationship, not the work, not the time we had. That was real. That mattered. That's worth remembering even if we can't continue it. They spent the remaining hour talking about practical matters, about the dissident network Victor would continue operating, about the work Tasha had started that would need to continue, about logistics and operations and everything except how much this separation was destroying both of them. When Margaret returned to end the conversation, Victor held Tasha one final time. I love you. Whatever name you're using, wherever you are, I love you. That doesn't end just because you're dead. That's permanent. Remember that. I love you too. And Victor, don't stay alone. Don't make my death an excuse to isolate yourself. Find someone else eventually. Build a life that's full and meaningful. Don't let losing me destroy you. Promise me. I promise to try. That's all I can offer. I'll try to move forward. Try to build a life. Try to be okay. But Tasha, I'm not going to pretend this is easy. I'm not going to pretend your disappearance doesn't devastate me. I'll survive. But I won't pretend I'm fine. I don't need you to pretend. I just need you to survive, to continue existing, to keep doing work that matters. That's enough. After Victor left, Margaret staged Tasha's death. Car accident. Body burned beyond recognition. Dental records match. Official death certificate issued. Media reported that Natasha Volkov, former State Department translator, had died in tragic accident. FSB accepted the death as legitimate. The bounty was canceled. The search ended. And Tasha became someone else entirely. Her new identity was Sarah Mitchell, schoolteacher in Portland, Oregon. No intelligence background. No Russian connections. No past that overlapped with Natasha Volkov's life. She was given complete identity package, birth certificate, educational records, employment history, social media presence, everything necessary to be convincingly someone else. This is your life now, Margaret explained during final debrief. Sarah Mitchell, age 28, elementary school teacher, moved to Portland from Minnesota. Ordinary life, boring life, safe life. And Tasha, you need to maintain this identity permanently. No contact with anyone from your past. No revealing who you really are. Sarah Mitchell is who you are now, forever. Can you do that? Can you be someone else permanently? I've been someone else for months as triple agent. I can do this. But Margaret, one question. If FSB eventually discovers I'm alive, if they realize the death was staged, what happens then? Then we move you again. New identity, new location. As many times as necessary. You're under permanent witness protection. That's the reality. But Tasha, FSB has no reason to doubt your death. They saw evidence. They confirmed it through their own sources. They believe you're dead. As long as you maintain Sarah Mitchell identity convincingly, they'll never know otherwise. You're safe, permanently. You just have to stay Sarah Mitchell. Can you do that? Yes. Sarah Mitchell. Schoolteacher, ordinary life. That's who I am now. That's who I'll be, forever if necessary. But becoming Sarah Mitchell permanently meant losing Natasha Volkov completely. Meant accepting that the woman who'd been triple agent, who'd fought FSB, who'd loved Viktor Morozov, was officially dead. That life ended. Everything that mattered from that life gone. Tasha let herself grieve for one day. Grieved Natasha Volkov. Grieved Viktor. Grieved the life she'd built and the work that had mattered. Then she locked that grief away and became Sarah Mitchell. Completely. Permanently. Without looking back. Because looking back meant remembering what she'd lost. And remembering made survival impossible. So she didn't remember. She just moved forward as someone else. Someone ordinary. Someone safe. Someone who'd never been anything except Sarah Mitchell, elementary school teacher from Minnesota living quietly in Portland. That was survival. That was the cost of fighting FSB and winning. That was the price of protecting Victor. That was reality. And Sarah Mitchell, whoever she really was underneath, accepted it. 3 years pass. Sarah Mitchell taught second grade, lived in a modest apartment in Portland, dated occasionally without commitment, and maintained the perfectly ordinary life witness protection required. She didn't speak Russian, didn't follow international news about dissidents, didn't allow herself to think about Victor or the network she'd helped build. Sarah Mitchell was real. Natasha Volkov was dead. That was the agreement. Then one afternoon, a new student enrolled in her class. Misha Kozlov, 8 years old, Russian immigrant, recently arrived from Moscow with his mother who was seeking asylum. The mother's name was listed as Anna Kozlov, journalist, applying for refugee status based on political persecution. Tasha Sarah felt her careful identity crack the moment she read those words, journalist, Moscow, political persecution. This was someone from Victor's network, someone he'd helped extract, someone who might recognize her, might say something, might inadvertently reveal that Sarah Mitchell was actually Natasha Volkov, supposedly dead Russian dissident. Mrs. Mitchell will take excellent care of Misha, the principal said during enrollment meeting. Sarah smiled professionally, said all the right things about welcoming international students, making accommodations for language barriers, supporting refugee families, all while her mind raced through possibilities and risks. After the meeting, Sarah pulled Misha's file. Anna Kozlov had indeed been extracted from Russia by an unnamed humanitarian organization. She'd written articles exposing government corruption, received death threats, fled with her son, standard dissident profile. Exactly the kind of person Victor's network helped. Sarah should request transfer, should get Misha moved to different classroom, should maintain distance from anything connected to her previous life. But looking at the 8-year-old boy's photo, clearly frightened, clearly traumatized, clearly needing stability, she couldn't make herself do it. This child needed support, needed someone who understood what it meant to be Russian refugee in America, needed someone who could help him adjust without making him feel broken or wrong. And Sarah Mitchell, Natasha Volkov, was exactly that person. Misha's first day was difficult. He spoke minimal English. Other children were curious but sometimes cruel about his accent, his differences. Sarah intervened gently, explaining that Misha was learning English just like they'd once learned to read, making his difference normal instead of shameful. After school, when other students had left, Misha approached her desk. "You speak Russian?" he asked in Russian, his voice hopeful. Sarah's heart stopped. She should say no, should maintain her identity, should not reveal linguistic abilities that Sarah Mitchell wasn't supposed to have. But looking at this scared 8-year-old who just fled his home country, who was struggling in an unfamiliar classroom, who just wanted someone who understood him, Sarah couldn't lie. "Yes, I speak Russian," she answered in flawless Moscow-educated Russian. "But Misha, you need to practice English too. That's how you'll make friends here, how you'll succeed. Let's speak English during class and I'll help you learn. But if you need Russian sometimes, I understand." "Deal. Deal." "Mrs. Mitchell, are you Russian too?" "I was long time ago, now I'm American. Just like you'll be someday." That evening, Anna Kozlov came to pick up Misha. She was younger than Sarah expected, mid-30s, with the exhausted look of someone who'd been running too long. When she saw Sarah, something flickered in her expression. Recognition, suspicion, confusion. "Mrs. Mitchell, thank you for helping Misha today." He said, "You speak Russian." "That's unusual for American teacher. I have language background," Sarah said carefully in English. "I want Misha to succeed. If speaking Russian occasionally helps, I'm happy to accommodate." "Your accent, Moscow, educated. That's very specific Russian. Where did you learn?" "I lived in Russia when I was younger, studied there. But that was a long time ago. I'm American now, just like Misha will be." Anna studied her with an intensity that made Sarah uncomfortable. "You look familiar. Have we met? In Moscow, perhaps?" "I don't think so. I left Russia many years ago. Before you were working as journalist, probably, maybe. But your face. I feel like I've seen photo of you. In context, I can't quite remember. Were you involved in diplomatic work, government, something that would make your photo public?" Sarah felt panic rising. Anna was clearly trying to place her, clearly remembered something. If she figured out Sarah Mitchell was actually Natasha Volkov, if she mentioned it to anyone, if word spread through the dissident community that Natasha was alive in Portland, FSB would know, would realize the death was staged, would come hunting. "I wasn't anyone important, just a language student. Anna, I should go, school responsibilities. But Misha's doing well, he'll adjust, give him time." Sarah left before Anna could ask more questions, her hands shaking as she drove home. 3 years of careful identity maintenance, destroyed by one perceptive journalist who'd seen her photo somewhere, maybe in Victor's files, maybe in FSB surveillance photos, maybe in State Department records that had been leaked. Somewhere Anna Kozlov had seen Natasha Volkov's face, and she was remembering that night. Sarah called Margaret using the emergency contact protocol witness protection had provided. "I've been compromised. One of Victor's refugees recognized me. She's trying to place where she's seen me. If she figures it out, if she tells anyone, FSB will know I'm alive. I need to be moved. New identity, new location. Now, slow down. Tell me exactly what happened. Sarah explained about Misha, about Anna, about the recognition. She knows she's seen my face. She just can't remember where yet. But she's a journalist. She's trained to research. She'll figure it out. Margaret, I need to disappear again before she does. Moving you is complicated. Creating new identity takes time. And if we move you suddenly, right after this family arrives, that confirms their suspicions. Better to stay. Monitor the situation. See if Anna actually remembers. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe the recognition was vague enough that she drops it. And if she doesn't drop it, if she figures out I'm Natasha Volkov, then what? Then we move you, but not preemptively. Not based on possibility, only based on actual threat. Sarah, you've been safe for 3 years. Don't panic over one chance encounter. Maintain your identity. Monitor Anna Kozlov. If she becomes actual threat, we'll handle it. But don't run unless running is necessary. Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah watched Anna carefully, looking for signs that she'd figured out Sarah's real identity, looking for indications she was researching, asking questions, contacting people from the dissident network. But Anna seemed focused on rebuilding her life, finding work, getting Misha settled, dealing with asylum paperwork, not investigating her son's teacher. Maybe Margaret was right. Maybe the recognition had been too vague. Maybe Anna wouldn't figure it out. Then one afternoon, Anna appeared at Sarah's classroom after school hours. She was holding a tablet, and her expression was complicated. Shocked, confused, sympathetic. Natasha Volkov, Anna said quietly in Russian. That's who you are. That's why you looked familiar. I finally remembered where I'd seen your photo. In Viktor Morozov's files. He showed me once, months ago, when I asked about the network's security. He said you'd died protecting the operation. That FSB had killed you in retaliation, that you were a hero. But you're not dead, you're here. Teaching my son, using a different name. Why? Sarah felt her world collapsing. Anna, you can't tell anyone. If FSB learns I'm alive, they'll come for me, they'll kill me. Actually, kill me this time. You have to keep this secret, please. I'm not going to tell anyone. But Natasha, Victor thinks you're dead. He mourned you. He honors your memory. He talks about you like you were the bravest person he knew. Don't you think he deserves to know you're alive? No, he doesn't. Knowing would put him at risk, would give FSB leverage. They'd target him to get to me. His safety depends on believing I'm dead. Anna, you were helped by Victor's network. You know what it means to be hunted by FSB. You know what they're capable of. I'm asking you as someone who understands that danger to keep my secret. Don't tell Victor. Don't tell anyone. Let me stay dead. But you're not dead. You're alive. And Victor is alone. He's still running the network. Still fighting FSB. Still honoring your memory by continuing the work you started together. Don't you think he'd want to know you survived? That your sacrifice wasn't fatal? My sacrifice was leaving. Was letting him think I died. Was giving up everything to protect him. Telling him I'm alive undoes that sacrifice. Makes it meaningless. Anna, I love him enough to stay dead. Don't take that choice away from me. Don't force me to expose myself. Just keep the secret, please. Anna was quiet for a long time, clearly wrestling with the decision. Fine, I'll keep your secret. But Natasha, you should know, Victor hasn't moved on. He's still alone, still grieving you, still dedicated to work you built together. He's not living, he's existing. And knowing you're alive might actually help him. Might give him permission to move forward. Think about that. Think about whether your death is actually protecting him or just punishing you both. After Anna left, Sarah sat in her empty classroom wondering if Anna was right. Was she protecting Victor by staying dead? Or was she just protecting herself from the vulnerability of being alive and separated? Was this sacrifice noble or selfish? Was she a hero or a coward? She didn't know. And not knowing was its own kind of torture. 2 months later, Sarah received a message through her witness protection contact. Viktor Morozov was in Portland, speaking at a university about Russian dissidents. Public event, open to community, and Anna Kozlov had mentioned she was taking Misha to attend, hoping to meet Victor afterward to thank him personally for the extraction. Sarah should avoid the event, should maintain distance, should not risk being seen by Victor, but the temptation to see him, even from a distance, even without contact, was overwhelming. 3 years of believing she'd never see him again, and now he was in Portland, miles away, speaking publicly. Sarah went to the event, sat in the back of the auditorium, wearing glasses and different hairstyle, trying to be unrecognizable. Watched Victor speak about dissidents, about resistance, about the cost of fighting oppression. He looked older, tired. Still grieving, just like Anna had said. We've lost people, Victor said during his talk. People who gave everything to protect others. People who died fighting FSB. People whose sacrifice made this work possible. I honor their memory by continuing, by not letting their deaths be meaningless, by ensuring their sacrifice resulted in actual change. That's how we remember heroes, by finishing what they started. He was talking about her, about Natasha Volkov, about the woman he thought had died protecting his network. And listening to him honor her memory, Sarah felt something break. This wasn't protection. This was cruelty. Letting him grieve someone who was alive. Letting him dedicate his life to honoring a sacrifice that was actually just hiding. After the talk, Sarah watched Anna approach Victor. Watched them talk, watched Misha meet Victor, watched the gratitude and emotion, and then watched Anna lean in, whisper something to Victor, and point toward the back of the auditorium. Toward Sarah. Victor's eyes followed Anna's gesture, found Sarah, locked onto her face. And even with glasses and different hair, even after 3 years, even believing she was dead, Victor recognized her instantly. Their eyes met across the crowded auditorium. Victor's expression cycled through shock, disbelief, hope, confusion. Sarah felt panic rising. She should leave, should run, should not allow this recognition. But she couldn't move, couldn't break eye contact, couldn't do anything except watch Victor realize the woman he'd mourned was alive and standing 50 feet away. Victor started moving toward her. Sarah panicked and fled, pushed through the crowd, out of the auditorium into the parking lot. She was fumbling for her car keys when Victor caught up. Natasha, just her name, barely a whisper, like he was afraid saying it too loudly would make her disappear again. You can't call me that. That's not who I am anymore. That person died 3 years ago. I'm Sarah Mitchell. Elementary school teacher. Nobody important. Nobody you know. You're alive. You're actually alive. Natasha, I mourned you. I've spent 3 years believing you were dead, honoring your memory, continuing work as tribute to you. And you've been alive this entire time. Why? Why let me believe you were dead? To protect you. To remove FSB's leverage. To make sure they didn't target you to get to me. Victor, my death kept you safe. That was the point. That was the sacrifice. Your sacrifice was staying away, was living, was giving up everything to keep me safe. I understand that. But Natasha, 3 years. 3 years of grief when you were alive. 3 years of being alone when you were here. That's not protection. That's torture. For both of us. I couldn't contact you. Witness protection won't allow it. If I'm alive in your life, I'm a target. FSB will eventually find out, will come for me, will use you to get to me. The only way I stay safe is staying dead to everyone who knew me, including you. Then let's change that. Let's find a way for you to be alive without being a target. Natasha, I have resources. Security. Ways to protect you that didn't exist 3 years ago. Let me help. Let me bring you back from the dead. Officially this time. Protected. Safe. Together. That's not possible. SB doesn't forgive. Doesn't forget I humiliated them. Made them look foolish. Destroyed their network. They want revenge. That doesn't expire. That's permanent. So is my love for you. So is your identity. So is the life you gave up. Natasha, staying dead isn't survival. It's slow death by another name. Come back. Let me help you come back. Let's find a way to make this work, please. Sarah, Natasha, whoever she was, looked at Victor and saw everything she'd given up. Saw the life that mattered. Saw the work that had meaning. Saw the man she loved. And wondered if dying to protect him had actually just been an elaborate way of hiding from life itself. I don't know if coming back is possible. But Victor, I'm tired of being dead. I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of being Sarah Mitchell when I'm actually Natasha Volkov. If there's a way to be alive again, to be myself again, to be with you again, I want to try. Even if it's dangerous. Even if it's risky. I want to try. Then we'll make it possible. Together. The way we've fought everything else. Together. And standing in that parking lot in Portland, 3 years after staging her own death, Natasha Volkov decided to come back to life.